Welcome to the Fit 15 podcast show, where you'll find health and fitness inspiration, motivation, and information shared in 15-minute episodes. Tune in while getting a move on to make leading and enjoying the benefits of a healthy lifestyle almost too easy. It's the Fit 15. And now your host, Catherine Basu.
Welcome to the Fit 15 podcast show. I'm your host, Catherine Basu. If you have been tuning into the show for a while, you probably know that I love running and love having guests on the show who talk about running. Last week, I had Dr. Jason Karp on for 2 episodes. In the first, he shared tips for becoming a runner or a better runner, so just some general running tips that you definitely want to check out. And then in his second episode, he talked about some tips specifically for completing a marathon. So we've been on this running streak, and you may think, if you are not a runner, that you are a little bit annoyed by my focus on running, but hopefully not. And hopefully you'll stay tuned for today's episode as well, and maybe get inspired to go from thinking you are not a runner and never will be a runner to actually getting your shoes on and maybe going out for a little jog, even if it's for a few minutes today. And that's because my guest, Kindal Sweet, has gone from not being a runner and saying she would never be a runner to actually completing not only her first 5K and marathon and qualifying for the Boston Marathon, to completing a half Ironman and then a full Ironman. So she's an Ironman athlete now. In the span of less than 10 years, she went from never being a runner to being a triathlete, and not just a triathlete, an Ironman triathlete. So today's episode is going to go over her journey from not a runner to Ironman athlete. It will run, or last, I guess I should say, more than 15 minutes, but I think it's really inspiring. I hope you'll get excited about hearing about her journey. And tomorrow I have Kindal back just to share some more insights, kind of break down her journey for you and just share some of the lessons that she's learned from running. We just kind of continue our conversation there. So I'm really excited to share this first half of our conversation, Kindal's journey from not a runner to Ironman triathlete. Who is Kindal other than this amazing athlete when she is not running, swimming, and or biking? She's a full-time physician assistant in the ER, a run and triathlon coach, wife to a hubby who is a dentist in the Air Force, and mom to a 10-year-old Pomeranian. Kindal, welcome to the Fit 15 podcast show. I'm so excited to have you as my guest today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited.
So I just found you on Instagram and have been really inspired by your journey. I took a screenshot of a photo you had about your Ironman journey in particular a few months back, and then I finally got around to asking you if you want to be on the show, and I'm really excited to have you share your journey with the listeners. So have you been running, biking, and swimming, I guess I should say, all your life, or what's your journey? How did you get started?
Awesome. So when I was not a runner my entire life, I actually was well known by my friends and family that I absolutely hated running and I would never do it until I was 20 and I had put on, the freshman 10 or whatever you want to call it in college. And I was like, oh, I should probably stop relying on my laurels and exercise. So I was like going to the gym and I was walking, typical, like the elliptical. And so I asked my dad, who had done multiple marathons and Ironmans when I was a child, do you think that I could walk a half? And he was like, you don't walk it, you're going to need to run it. And I was like, I can't even run around the block. And our block is like not even a half a mile. So I was like, this is going to be problematic. And so I moved from Florida. I was born and raised in Florida. And so I'm a huge Disney fan. So my dad was like, well, let's do the Disney half. It was my dad's first marathon. And I was like, okay, that sounds great. So the Disney half, that was 6 months away. This is like right before July 4th. And so I was like, this is like 6 or 7 months away. I can definitely do that. So we go to sign up, and as everyone knows, like Disney registration can fluctuate on what's available if you register late. And so the half was full that year. For some reason, it was like everyone was into the half. I think it was when the half was booming and the marathon was kind of drowning out. Mm-hmm. And so my dad was like, oh, well, the marathon's open, so we'll just sign up for that. And I was like, so of course, registration isn't cheap. So my dad signed us up, and I was like, okay. So at that point, it was like do or die, sink or swim. Like you better get to running. So I started running, and this is July in Florida. I mean, there is no worse time to start picking of running. It is 1,000,000 degrees outside, and I did my first 5K on July 4th. And I remember right before that, there was this tunnel we used to run to, and I could barely run to it. It was like maybe 2 miles. I was like, I'm never going to finish this 5K ever.
Oh, man.
So I did the 5K, and I think I finished. And I mean, this is before I think my dad might have had a Garmin, but this is before I ever had a Garmin or any apps on my phone. I just got an iPhone, so I think I did it in like 33 minutes is what I always remember. It's probably like 33 minutes, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm a 5K runner. This is amazing. I finished a 5K. I mean, on top of the world. Kind of where my journey started, and then from there. I mean, just kind of like everyone, you know, when you're starting to go for a marathon, like, and you never run before, I just added on like mile by mile by mile. And every mile, I really loved that part of the journey of my first marathon, because every mile you ran when you're starting from zero is like a new milestone. So like, it was like you got an award every single training week. Like, oh, I just ran 16, or I just ran 17, or I just ran 18. Like, oh my gosh, I'm incredible. And so it was really an awesome experience. And I ended up getting decently fast before the marathon. I ran a 1:47 half.
Okay,
and
yeah.
That PR actually stood for quite some time after that. It stood until 2000. So that's in 2009. I ran that, and it stuck until 2015. Yeah, okay. 2015.
Yep.
So it stuck for a long time. And then I rounded that out, and I ended up finishing the Disney Marathon that year. And that was the year it actually snowed in Florida for the marathon. But you never know what you're going to get at Disney.
Right.
And I ran a 4:12, and it was horrible. I literally had the worst GI distress, like the stomach flu for the last 8 miles. I was like cramping and injured. And of course, like every first time marathoner, I was like, I'm done. I'm done running. I'm done marathoning. And I wasn't even liking running. So, I mean, I was done, like, for the count. And I ran a few halves, I think, here or there. And I got injured. I started to try to go run for another marathon at BQ, and I was running really fast in college and running 60-mile weeks. And I ended up getting a stress fracture in my heel.
Hi friends, it's Catherine, and if you are joining us for an out and back 15-minute walk or run, that is your halfway point reminder. We are 7.5 minutes into the episode. You want to turn around now. All right, back to Kindal.
My senior year. And so at that point, I was like, well, I still exercise, but I never really ran. And then I went to, which I now am, I'm a PA. So I went to PA school. So I'm a physician assistant in the emergency department. And during PA school, you really, I don't know, it's just like full time. From the time you wake up till you go to school from 7 to 5, and then you study. So exercise and running, 3 miles here, 5 miles there, 3 miles there, and I would do an occasional half, and that was about 3 years of my life. So I do an occasional half marathon, and my times would range from like 2:15 to 1:50, and I was kind of all over the place depending on how far I was running or training, and I wasn't really training too seriously. So that during that time, so that was 2011 to about 2013. And then I got out, and I decided, well, I'll do another marathon. I was getting married, and then I was like, oh, I'll do the sweating for the wedding thing. And I signed up for the Phoenix Marathon, which a lot of people go do from Instagram, and I still do it every year. But I do the half every year. It was the one time it rained in Phoenix for like the entire year. So I have no good luck with marathons.
I guess, yeah. Jeez.
And I was planning on trying to break 4, but I wasn't really training. I never had a formal coach. I never done formal research into running. So I was just kind of doing what most first timers do, is download the How Higdon, just run the mileage that's set.
Right. Yep.
And I ran 4:04, and just like most people that don't have a coach or haven't really studied running, my training was much faster than my marathon day, which isn't how it's supposed to go. But I was still happy. I ran a marathon, and after that I swore off again for like 4 months. I was like, I hate running. I'm not running a marathon. And then, of course, it comes back around full circle. And I was like, okay. So I started signing up for half, and I was doing all these half marathons, and still not smart, yet not knowledgeable. And I got a really bad IT band injury to the point right December I was just out for the count, and I couldn't run or walk like a quarter mile. It was just so painful.
Oh, I had one of those and it's just super frustrating.
So then at that point, we're like, I love running. Why? You know, like, why can't I run? I love running. All this time of never wanting to do things again. And you love running and you're like, I can't believe I can't run. And you're just whiny and cranky all the time. So then I decided, like, okay, I'm going to get smart. So I bought about like all the running books, you know, and I read about running as much as I should have been wanting to be running, or should be running. It's winter in Phoenix. It's beautiful outside. And so I just read about running. And finally, it got better. It probably took about 6 weeks or so off running. And I came back to running and I ran this half, the rock and roll half in Phoenix in January 2015. And I ended up running with a friend and I was like, well, we'll probably finish around like 2 hours. That seems like a good goal. I'd just been running for 2 weeks prior to that. So I was like, don't want to take it too hard. And then, you know, we kind of split off the last 5K. And I looked down at my watch and I saw like 7XX on my watch for those last few miles. And I was like, that's never happened before. I was like, maybe this time off was good for me. Maybe, you know, most runners, and especially new runners, fear taking time off is bad for them, or an injury could be bad. But really, and I've seen this happen to a couple of my friends that had really bad injuries. They came back stronger, faster. I think sometimes your body just needs that time to rest.
Oh, for sure.
Completely. Mm-hmm. And so that's when I took my journey, which is kind of like, that's around where my Instagram started. So if you scroll all the way back to that's when my Instagram started. It was right after the injury. I just started like weightlifting and running. And so that's when I decided to go for the lofty goal of a BQ. Mm-hmm. So I had Phoenix that February and I said, well, if I hit 147-ish, you know, that would be about BQ pace. And would be 4 months out from a marathon. So I went and did it. And I said, you know, if I did that, then maybe I had a shot. So I went out and finally broke my PR from 2009 and 2015 with a 147 flat. And so I was like, oh, yay, PR. So I'm going to go for it. So I signed up for the Utah Valley Marathon. I hired a coach, Lauren Flores, which she just OT qualified at CIM in December after having her first pace.
Oh, wow.
I hired her to create a custom plan for me. She didn't coach me because I wasn't like willing to put in that kind of investment, but I hired her to make a plan. And that was the first time I've ever really known like what intervals were and what tempo work was. And like, I don't know, how fast could I go before I flew off the treadmill? And
right.
I was like, oh, I'm never going to hit these paces. And, you know, part of me didn't really ever hit the paces that she'd had on that schedule. And sometimes I did and sometimes I didn't, but I was trying harder than I'd ever tried. And I think that's all that really matters. You're trying to go for anything, like your best effort is always the best that you could do. And I think some people get caught up when they have plans or coaches like not hitting a certain pace or a certain, like if they were off the workout or if they finished an interval short or I don't know, anything. And they get all about it. But really, if you put in the effort's there and the effort's what counts. Like your life's around, we're not professional athletes. Like we don't have everything laid out. We have lives and kids and families and jobs and everything going on that we have to handle. We don't have massage therapists, nutritionists. Like we don't have all those things. So all those things play a role in your running. So you can't just like say, oh my gosh, this run really sucks and I'm a horrible runner if you don't factor in the rest of your life around why that run sucks. So I think dialing it in for everyone, new runners, old runners, dialing it into what made that run suck is key. And then you can look at the run and be like, okay, well, it was 100 degrees and it was 90% humidity and I slept 5 hours less. Like, yeah. Like, let me go put that in a calculator and see how slow I'm supposed to be. Oh, look, it projects that I probably should be about 45 seconds to a minute slower than that pace that I was supposed to hit. And then you probably feel so bad about what happened, but you were still putting in the effort. If you're supposed to be doing an interval and it's supposed to be 8 to 9 out of 10 effort and you put in 8 to 9 out of 10 effort and the pace was slower than it was supposed to be, but you still put in the effort, the effects from that training are still going to be there.
Oh, that's great advice for sure.
When I went to Utah, so then I would like train, you know, and this is when everyone saw me on Instagram, and I went to Utah, and I mean, first off, I didn't really know about the course, but That course is hard if anyone ever does it. I don't think it's a very easy course. It's very not easy course if you're coming from sea level.
Oh, right. That's true.
And I think it's at like 7,000 feet, and you have hills in the beginning. So it's like a legit 6 or 7,000 feet, and you're like, whoops. So I remember that was quite painful, the marathon, and I finished in 3:48, which wasn't my goal, but 16-minute PR. So I was like, this is awesome. It's a 16-minute PR. I feel like I did really well. And I thought I was at that point just like one and done marathon a year. And then, Instagram, everybody's doing it. So you should try and do it. And so my friend, which is also a big Instagrammer, Carly McDott, she told me that she was going to do Rebel Canyon City in an attempt to BQ. And we were close to the same pace. And I was like, so I talked to a few friends and I was like, do you think that I could maybe do 2 marathons a year? And they're like, yeah, it's like 6 months away. You're like, totally fine. And I was like, okay, well, I've never done that before. But okay. So I emailed Lauren again and I was like, can I have another plan? But this time I was like, okay, so I want to have like my easy runs easier than you had said. And I want my longer runs to be like a little bit faster than what you said. And then I kind of want some longer repeats. So I wasn't like getting very fast to 400. So I started to learn like my body and like how my body responds to training. And I like relayed that to her. And at that point we'd had a starting point. So she's like, okay, that sounds like a good plan. And we'll start from where you're at now, like the 3:48, and we'll work towards the 3:30, like over the training cycle. So a lot of people say like they make their plan in their head, like, oh, I want to run a 3:30. And so they start with 3:30 paces, but you're not at a 3:30. You're still at like a 3:48 fitness level. So I was really that we decided to start at like, okay, we're at a 3:48 fitness level and we're going to work towards this 3:30. So it gave me a little bit, it gives you, you don't feel so discouraged out the gate either that you're not hitting paces because the paces are a little bit easier. And as you get stronger, they get harder but you're getting stronger. So it's not as hard. So I think that's a good way to go about it. And so I went out to Canyon City and I had the race of a lifetime and I ran a 3:24. So I got a 24-minute PR that day.
That's awesome.
And that's what I do. And, so just for, on the grand scheme of things, that's like I ran my first marathon in a 4:12 and I ran my first 5K in 33 minutes and then I ran a 3:24. So anyone on the spectrum, this is like over many years and many ebbs and flows. You can still have your goals if you want them. So after that, I decided like, okay, well, I have about 18 months till Boston. So I told my husband, I said, well, we have about 18 months so we could have a baby and still be ready for Boston, or I could do an Ironman. Like both are like pretty, a baby's a lifetime, obviously, but an Ironman is like a very big commitment of both you and if you have children and your spouse, like I don't think people realize it's just a very large commitment. You train, almost like a part-time job. Plus I work full-time. Plus not only that, it's a very big cost factor in it. And so he's like, well, I don't want a baby. So let's do Ironman.
Did he do it with you then? Or?
No. He just, my husband does not run or do stuff, but he just agreed for me to do it. And I think that's important when you're going to do an Ironman event or even a half event is you need to talk to your spouse and make sure that they're on board 100% because it's going to take a lot on their end for you to succeed because the training is, 20 hours a week. So that's a lot of time outside. If you're working 40 hours a week and training 20 hours a week, there's there's very minimal time left on the table.
Right.
So you have to have fun, especially if you have like a family. So I just ran it by him, and so he didn't do it, but he was supportive. And so we went on this Ironman journey and I had about like 10 months to train for this Ironman. I registered for an Ironman in October and this is January 1st. And so I started I've done a few sprints in college, like just kind of like on a whim when I was training for my first marathon and just kind of being like, oh, just do this sprint, no big deal. And they have them all the time in Florida, but that's very short. It's like an hour race.
Okay.
It's nothing really like a 1/4 mile swim, a 14-mile bike, and a 3-mile run. So you don't really have to train very hard for that unless you want to do really well. You can just kind of wing it. Mm-hmm. So this is the first time I've ever really like gone the distance. But I felt like I'd had these really great marathon training cycles. I felt like my body was in a good spot to attempt this. So I went for it. I did my first Olympics probably in April. And I did pretty well. I was really bad at biking. I started off biking and I was so slow. I was like 13 miles per hour. And it's so slow. I think that's like what Meg runs a marathon at, like, and I'm on a bike.
Right.
So slow, painfully slow, but it was okay because, you know, just like when I started running,
Yeah.
you know, you can only do what you can do, and you can only get better. So I just kept trying and trying and trying. And biking is a huge component of Ironman. It's 112 miles, and it's the biggest component. It's also 6 miles and a half. So your largest component in training. So if you aren't really great at it, it's going to be not a great day for you. So,
Sure.
you know, you have to kind of work on it. So I started to more do that. So I cut back on running. I cut back to 4 days a week. I cut back on speed work. I did 1 day a week of speed work, and then I just biked and swam a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
I did, let's see. So in prep for the Ironman, there was the inaugural Mount Charleston, which is like a huge marathon now for a lot of people to go BQ at, but it was the first year. And so I was like, oh, I'll just sign up for that for fun. I didn't really, like I said, training for Ironman. I mean, I was still running, you know, but not running high mileage. I was running like 40 miles a week, 4 days a week, lots of easy miles, 930s, not really hard. And then I went out to Mount Charleston and I was like, well, maybe I could break 320, you know, if I have a great day, or maybe 320. I didn't want to break 320. I was just like 320 would be great. So 321, 322.
Right.
Then you would think, so I was like, well, that'd be great. And then I remember going out there. And I think this is like one of the things with racing. Is like, if you don't really care about it, like sometimes you have the best races.
That's so true.
And so I just went out and I was just kind of like chilling. I mean, it's downhill, so like jogging or whatever. And I was jogging fast, so like, you know, not really labored or anything. And I ran a 3:16 that day.
Wow.
And I was like, oh my God. That's still my peak. So, I mean, that was like a one day. I had a great day that day. So I had like the year in 2016. And then 2000, I had my first Olympic. I think I got like third overall female. And then I went to my first half Ironman in July. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, like my goal was under 6.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, if I could just go 6, it would be like my day. But I didn't really know if that would happen because I was such a slow biker. And I had never really done these events, so I didn't really know what to expect. And then it wasn't wetsuit legal, so that adds on quite a bit for the swim. And so I just didn't really know. And then I ended up finishing that in 5:48, and I was like over the moon ecstatic.
Yeah.
I mean, it's still amazing time. Like, I think if anyone goes sub 6, it's just amazing. But
yeah.
I was just overly ecstatic. I was like, oh my God, you know, another great day in 2016. And then that's when I moved from Arizona to Ohio and met Ashley a half days on Instagram. And we were just training for Ironman at the same time. So that kind of made things a little bit easier to have like a training buddy for those really long days.
Yeah.
And so I did Ironman Louisville in October of 2016. And I ended up finishing Louisville and 11:51, had an amazing day. It was the best experience ever.
Mm-hmm.
It was well worth all of the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours of training over 10 months. And I don't think there's anything quite like a red carpet finish of Ironman. It's just a very long day, and you're among like some very, very great people out there. And it's just very humbling to see some people that finish super late. And then it's also like humbling to see how fast some people do it. It's just like a different type of endurance event. And it really like tests you in all the ways that anything could test you, because 12 hours, I mean, 12 to 17 hours, you're up. So whatever's going to happen to you, you have to know how to eat, you have to know how to drink, you have to know how to maintain your body. You can't like over push in an event, and you have to, you know, make sure you have the right electrolytes. Like, there's so many factors that play a role into that event. Like, you can't just be a great athlete. You've got to have all the other things in line to make it work. And then I guess, you know, you could say the whole, like, if you go from the high, they're always the low. So 2017, oh my gosh, I think that year could have gone any worse than it did last year. So I started off really okay. I started off in Phoenix again. I did Phoenix again, and my goal was like around 130. I got the flu right before it. I was running like a 132, which I was still stoked about. That was like a 7-minute PR. So I was like, well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And then, but then Boston came, and I don't know. You're supposed to hit the wall. Everyone knows, like, oh, the wall's at mile 20. I hit the wall at like mile 4. So I was like, oh God.
No. Well, that was that was the hot one, right? For Boston in 2017.
It was so hot, but I think it was more because I was doing like the fartlek style where there's so many people and I was trying to get around them and time Boston mistakes, like just all over. I just slap myself in the face every time I go through it. But I'll never forget it. There's this part with a course curves at mile 4, and I told Ashley, and I was just like, all right, you need to go. Like, I was just thinking to myself, like, oh my gosh, like, since when do you hit the wall at mile 4? Like, how? This is like your 5th marathon. Like, get it together. And you've already done an Ironman. Like, get it together. And then that race, I mean, it still went okay. You know, I finished in like 3:44, so you know, still a respectable time. Just not. I was training for like 3:15, so like way off from what I was planning on running.
Right.
After that, I had Ironman Santa Rosa, which I was going out there to really try to like bust my PR out of the water, and then anything that could go wrong went wrong. We were moving. The movers came that week. I had like all these stomach ulcers from being really like stressed from all the moving stuff. And then we went out there and I was super sick and then it was super hot and it was just a nightmare. And I ended up actually tearing my posterior tibial tendon during that race unknowingly. And so that's kind of I went back to go try to do Maryland as like a way to like, you should never do this for everyone listening unless but I was already tanked and I was like, I want redemption. And my brain was like, my heart was saying like, I want redemption. And my brain was saying, you're really stupid because your body's in no capacity doing this. My heart was like, but this is my last year at 25 to 29. And then I was like, my head was like retarded. But I did, because I was like, well, I'll never know. So there I am, like spending thousands of, the registration fee for one of these is like close to $1,000, mind you. So here I am in Maryland, being a retard. Like, it's like, oh, great. Like, because I have these days where I have really good days and I have days where I had really bad days and I couldn't even get off the couch. And good days where like I felt really great. I was like, well, if it's a good day, I can do well.
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't a good day. I woke up and it was not a good day. It was a bad day. And still it was a bad day within like 10 miles on the bike. And by the time I got off the bike at like 112 miles, I was sunburnt. I was dehydrated and I was just like, oh, no. My foot was hurting and I got on the run and I started having like these chest pains and I'm like, obviously a PA. So I was like, probably just my asthma. So I took my inhaler and that wasn't helping and it wasn't going away at rest. And I was like, well, this probably isn't good. So I pulled myself off the course, took my trip to the emergency department, then the cardiologist, then the doctor, had the stress test and the echoes and everything came out fine, except for the fact that my adrenals were just like shot. My thyroid was off. So like my endocrine system was just like tanked. And so that just like knocked me back and it knocked me way back from like even an injury perspective. So like I had been injured before. And you can come back from that. But this was like something that I couldn't even run. I wasn't injured. I couldn't even run like 2 miles at like 10:30 pace. I was just dying.
Wow. Yep.
And the body was like, oh, cool, great. So it's not, my resting heart rate was like 10 beats higher per minute. Like just everything was just off. My body just had no clue how to auto-regulate. And so that took probably until, I'm still dealing with it now, but I would say that, the bad part lasted until around January. And I did the Walt Disney Half Marathon with Ashley in the beginning of this year in 2018. And I finished in like 1:51. And I ran the first 7 and I was like, oh my God, I'm dying. And I was like, you can just go on without me. And she figured I was like so dramatic that I was going to finish in like 2:30 or something. And then I came in like 51. But mind you, that's still a great time, but that's way off my PR of the year before. That, 132 to 150, 20 minutes different. So after that, I started getting a little bit better. I could handle a little bit more mileage, but the year before, comparatively, I was running 70-mile weeks plus Ironman trainings.
Right.
Things were different. I wasn't Ironman training and I was barely running like 30-mile weeks. And so I went out to Phoenix this time around and I was like, well, I'll run this half, everyone's doing it, and I actually did pretty well that day. I did a 1:35. And so I was like, oh, okay, so maybe my body's doing better now. 135, that's pretty close to my PR. We're pretty close.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we're not too far off. And that's when Ashley and I decided to sign up for Gulf Coast.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, just do it. It'll be redemption, for all of last year. And if not, it'll just be a fun day. Like, if all crap goes to hell again, it'll be fun. Like, all your friends will be there. And I'm like, okay, whatever, fine. So I hired a coach this time around because I hired one of my best friends, Kayla, Where Your Feet Take You. Because I was like, look, I have no motivation anymore after last year. Like, it was just, everything was shot. And I was like, I don't know anything. My body's not having it. So I need someone to like do this, look at this from like an outside perspective.
Right.
Which I think some people should do. If you can't get a hold of yourself mentally, or you just like don't have the motivation because like you've just been disappointed so many times, or life just is so stressful, you can't think about things clearly. I think having a coach is like good because it takes all the guesswork out of your training, and it also takes all the emotion out. Like, you're still emotional when things don't go well, so they're going to tell you that it's okay, and they're still like happy about it. So it's like positive reinforcement for your life. And so she did that for me, and I hired her for maybe like, I think we were really close by the time I hired her. We had to kind of cram training like 7 weeks out. I didn't give her very much time, but I was like, oh, I was fit enough. I was just like, I just need you to kind of like put the workouts in,
Mm-hmm.
And so that's when I had like a few PRs during that time. Like, when I first hired her on, I just had my PR and my 10K. I just went out and ran one, and I ended up having a PR. And then Disney was during that time, which was such a shock because it wasn't like a cold day or anything. It's Florida in April. It was like 65 degrees and 100% humidity.
Oh, geez.
Maybe, I don't know, maybe it was 70. It was hot. But I ended up running. That's the time I got second in the Star Wars 10K.
Oh, wow.
Second or